the Ghost of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 92 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 18 of A Clash of Kings, that's Sansa 2.
And we're going to chat about the chapter, we're going to try not to spoil any future plot points for you, and hopefully we're going to provide you with some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the TV show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes, they'll help you, particularly if you're not reading along. How are you, Mackelly?
I'm doing all right. How about you, my friend?
Not too bad, not too bad. I urgently IM'd you earlier in the week to say, in the banter section, write the words quarter round. Okay?
Right, I did. I did as instructed.
You did, I see it there. All day today I was like, what was that thing I told Mackelly to put? I could not remember. It's only because I can see it there. I'm like, oh, I know what story I was going to tell. I was like, no, this is so painfully like me.
Oh, that's fantastic. But you know yourself well enough to know to have it written down when...
but by someone else, apparently, because I wouldn't remember to do it. So the story about the quarter round is, for listeners who don't know what quarter round is, I am not a building contractor myself, so for me it's a little bit of an alien concept, but where a hardwood floor meets the skirting board, there's usually just a little a piece of wood that has a cross section which is a quarter circle, and that runs along and sort of like fills the gap between the skirting board and the hardwood floor, and it's called quarter round.
Yes, right.
Okay, I tell you this because we have a bathroom scale which I hate. It's an evil machine.
It lies. It lies.
But because, to make it more sort of generally accessible to the house, instead of being in a bathroom where they normally are, it's out in the hallway where anyone can jump on it as they walk past, kind of thing. It's, tucked away, but in the hallway. But it's right up against the wall. And the other day I got on it and I was like, woohoo! I've lost 10 pounds without doing anything.
That seems a little fishy.
The front of it was just wedged on the quarter round and it was just lifting it up just enough. I swear. When I pulled it away from the wall, I was like, 2 pounds up. That's a shame.
You should not have investigated. You should just live with
that. Yeah. Celebrating with another cookie.
Clearly, I've got room to spare. Oh, man, that's funny. Did I ever tell you that Stacy got me a scale for Christmas a couple years ago? When I opened it, she told me she felt like the Peloton guy. Like that Christmas commercial where the husband gets a wife a Peloton and she's like, the wife is so into exercising, and it got some bad publicity because it was like this guy's insinuating that his wife needs to exercise. So yes. Yeah, she said she felt like the Peloton guy when I opened it.
It didn't occur to her until that moment.
Right, like, I might be sending a message here. Yeah. Oh, man. I noticed something on my drive home today that bad music puts me so on edge and it takes me down a path toward a bad mood just listening to music that I don't like.
You should not listen to the radio, I feel.
I should make sure Molly has her headphones when we drive places. Because we were driving back from swim practice today, and she was making a playlist of, to me, what sounded like just screeching and wailing. But apparently it was music that she thought was really beautiful. And I could feel myself sinking into an annoyed state, heading toward a bad mood. And I was like, you got to stop. You got to stop. You're going to put me in a bad mood. I don't want to be in a bad mood. And there was no other reason other than the terrible music that I was being subjected to.
But we do sound like, old people, but modern music is quite poor. It's quite disappointing.
In my opinion as well. But speaking of our drive, it reminded me of something about you that. So Molly and I play this game.
My drive, my get up and go.
Yes, that's what it is. We played this game where she identifies cars by their little symbols. You know, like Toyota has the little loop-de-loops and Audi has the 3 interconnecting circles. And for a while, she struggled over the, did I say 3? I meant 4.
I thought there were 4 too. I was off Googling it just while you were talking.
Yes. She was confused by a symbol that has like 3 little badges inside of it. And she knows it now, but the symbol is Buick. And of course, it reminded me of you.
So, yeah, I know you think that's funny, but that makes one of us. So the story is my brother and I had a card game. The game is called Top Trumps. And basically, each card was a different car. And the brand Buick is American and is not anywhere else. And so the first time I ever saw that word was on that card. So I'd never heard it. I didn't know how to pronounce it. And it looked a lot like the word quick. So my brother and I called it Bwick. Which isn't that funny. Because it's perfectly logical that we would call it Bwick.
I certainly could see why you called it Bwick. But it is the thought of you guys running around talking about Bwick Regals.
I'm going to get me a Bwick.
Oh, man. Anyway.
All right, let's get down to business. How did we leave Sansa Stark? The last time we saw Sansa was quite a while ago, actually. She's had a long break. It's funny, after Tyrion, we got 2 Tyrions in 3 chapters. We're back to Sansa, who's had like a 15-chapter break.
Yeah, yes.
Last we saw her, she was at Joffrey's name day tournament. She, with a little bit of help from the Hound, saved Ser Dontos Hollard, who Joffrey was ready to murder for his drunken insolence. She was also spoken to kindly by Tyrion, but Cersei once spoke kindly to her, and so she's vowed to herself never to trust a Lannister again. Sound advice there, Sansa. All right, Mackelly, why don't we give them the summary?
Sansa's found a note hidden beneath her pillow. It tells her to come to the Godswood tonight if she wants to go home. She's wary of a trap, but can't resist the temptation. She reads the short note over and over until a maid enters and she's forced to hide it, and then she realizes how dumb she's being and burns the note at the first opportunity. To get to the Godswood, though, she has to leave Maegor's Holdfast across a drawbridge currently guarded by Sir Preston Greenfield. She has access to all of the Red Keep, but an evening outing like this would certainly prompt some questions.
Not sure what to do, she's disturbed by some shouting. She looks out and Sir Preston is gone. She quickly dresses and rushes out. Her heart's in her mouth as she crosses the undefended bridge and sees the Kingsguard helping Joffrey into his armour, the source of the ruckus. She gets to the Godswood undetected. Within, she remembers the power of the old gods. She's always preferred her mother's faith of the 7, but she feels the pull of the Godswood now. She waits to see which noble knight has decided to rescue her.
Ser Dontos appears, to her severe disappointment. He smells of wine, but he assures her it was just 1 cup for the courage to make this rendezvous. He's watched almost as closely as she is. He's chivalrous in telling her that he owes her his life and would do anything he can to rescue her. He says that Florian was a fool and one of the greatest knights of yore, and he yearns to be her Florian. She wants to know the plan.
He's not sure how to get her out of the castle, but from there a ship could take her home. He would need coin to secure her passage and to do it quietly and carefully. He berates himself for doing nothing to save her father, but her kindness has reminded him of what a knight should be. He cannot pass another note, so he asks her to come to the Godswood as often as she can. She agrees and realizes that Ser Dontos may not be all that she hoped for, but he is possibly the answer to her prayers. He tells her they must act cold, even cruel toward each other to prevent suspicion. She understands and kisses him on the cheek and calls him my Florian.
She's giddy with hope on the walk back and literally bumps into a very drunk Sandor Clegane. He asks what she's up to, and she tells him she's been praying for Joffrey. I almost got through that with a straight face. The Hound knows a lie when he hears it and mocks her for singing their song. He's menacing, but then he sobers up a little and walks her home. They're stopped on the bridge by Sir Boris Blunt, who informs them that the king was breaking up a hunger riot. The Hound mockingly says, "Such a brave boy." Sir Boris turns to Sansa, wanting to know where she's been.
She tells him praying in the Godswood, and the lie sounds better with practice. They pass on, and she asks Clegane why he lets people call him dog, but denies being a knight. He points out that dogs will die for you and never lie. He tells her how his grandfather, kennel master at Casterly Rock, and his hounds saved Titus Lannister from a lion and was rewarded with a keep and title. 3 dogs died and are memorialised in the family sigil. He asks her to sing him a song, and although he may have had lewder intent, Sansa takes him literally and promises to sing for him one day. He accuses her again of being a liar, that dogs can smell lies, and that everyone in King's Landing lies, and she's not as good as any of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come down a little bit.
Yeah, a calm after the storm, somewhat, of the last few chapters.
Right.
But it's kind of a turning point for Sansa in many ways, because she's basically been on a she's almost been on a downward spiral since the moment we met her. Because the moment we met her, she was sort of getting betrothed to the, heir apparent to the realm.
Right.
And from that point onwards, her life has just got worse and worse and worse at every turn.
Yeah, good observation. I hadn't thought about that. It really has. That when they were sitting there sewing and stitching and all that stuff in Winterfell, that was the high moment of the time we've known her.
Yeah. I mean, she's had a few things that she's been glad of. She was glad of the opportunity to come to King's Landing, but the journey didn't go so well.
Right.
And
she lost Lady.
Once she's been here, her losses have continued to mount up. But, a possible turning point. She has at least one ally.
Yes, right. And we discussed that at the time, that, doing what she did for Ser Dontos does give her an ally, whether he's useful or not.
Yes, that was the question mark I was going to pose. Is he actually useful?
Right.
So, we'll sort of take it back. So Sansa is still taking beatings. They mentioned it mentions in the chapter that she's got an angry bruise on her stomach.
Yeah, that was from Sir Meryn Trant, I believe, right? She said she found out that Jaina Slint was sent to the wall by Tyrion, and she said, "I hope the others get him." And It angered Joffrey, and he had Meryn pop her one in the stomach. So, and it also mentioned that he was wearing a mailed. He had mailed fists when he hit her, so that's wonderful. Yeah. But that being said, when she sees this letter and she's having conflicted thoughts about it and unsure what to do, one of her thoughts is, should she take the letter to the Queen to prove that she's being good? After all the terrible things the Lannisters have done, she still wants, considering anyway, that adoration of, look, I'm being good. I'm a good girl. Tell me I'm a good girl.
Let me give Sansa some credit there. I think she only really considers that because she's worried that the whole thing is a trap.
Yes.
I don't think she's actually looking for, to betray her possible allies. Yeah. She just thinks, this is probably a trap and I'd be better off reporting it because that will make me look better.
Right. I see that angle. Yeah, she's basically...
But if I were her doing that, I would do it the next day. Let the person clear out of the Godswood before you.
Right. In case it isn't a trap. Right. She just got that person caught. But she's basically considering 3 options. First, she thinks, could it be a cruel joke set up by Joffrey? And she remembers back to when he said, "I want to show you something," and takes her for a walk, and it turns out to be a walk to see her dad's head on a spike. So I could certainly see Joffrey playing that kind of cruel joke on her to see her get her hopes up and then dash them. Yeah, and then the next one is, it's a trap. It's a trap to prove that she's not loyal, and she imagines getting there, and Ilian Payne is sitting underneath the heart tree with the sword, her father's sword, Ice, in his hands. And but then the third option is that a true knight has been sent to rescue her finally, and the folks whose names come to her mind are the Redwine twins, which I don't think I guess they are. Slobber. Yeah, I guess they are knights. I don't think of them as being, the bravest and truest of knights.
No, nor I. But I guess they are captives like her.
Yes.
So they do have a common interest in getting out of there.
Right, yeah. Then the other is Sir Balin Swan, who we just saw last Tyrion chapter riding around with Cersei. So probably not him, but, maybe keep your enemies close.
Yep.
So then her third thought is possibly Beric Dondarrion. And I thought, how funny would it be if Beric Dondarrion is getting all this acclaim for being everywhere in the Riverlands and dying and not dying and harassing the Lannisters, and it turns out he's been in a King's Landing wine sink this whole time.
Yes. If it had been Beric Dondarrion, I would have gone back and read some previous chapters about what the heck was going on in this book. So she doesn't trust her maids, and I think that's smart because they're changed every 2 weeks to avoid her making any friendships with them. And so you've got to imagine that the Queen is telling each new crop of maids that she wants to know what Sansa's saying, doing, thinking.
Yeah.
So,
I guess Cersei doesn't know. Maybe she is trying to create her own plans, but this girl is going to go back after lighting a fire in her little fireplace there, and she's going to say she had a fire lit.
Yeah,
that's all I got today.
But you're right. Actually, maybe the smarter move would be to let her have a long-term maid with whom she could form a friendship that is genuinely a spy.
Right?
That can,
get thoughts out of her and stuff.
Yes, exactly. Things she will confide would be the things that you'd be most interested to know. But seriously, Sansa Stark doesn't like you very much. I think that's pretty much well established at this point.
Right.
You killed her dog. You killed her father.
Oddly, she no longer trusts you.
Yeah.
But she's...
Yeah, we kind of brushed over this a little bit, but she wants to go, but she doesn't know how to go. And so she actually goes to bed, not planning to go. So she really sort of agonizes over and she feels like she needs someone to help her and point her in the right direction here.
Right.
And it is a difficult conundrum she's in, but
sure, she's
just
a young
going
girl
to bed
too,
over it.
She hasn't had a lot of life experience to make these kind of possibly life-altering decisions here.
Yeah.
So, because she's unsure of herself and wishes someone would be there to tell her what to do, she starts missing Septa Mordane and Jane Poole. And we know Septa Mordane's head was mounted near Ned's when Joffrey took Sansa up to see Ned's head. I can't remember if it was first or second, but she saw Septa Mordane's head at the same time she saw Ned's head. And we had talked at the time about how senseless that is to kill a Septa when she could have easily just been sent to, a sept somewhere. But, didn't have to kill her. She could have continued her life's work and just not worked for the Starks anymore. But then she also thinks about Jane Poole, which she refers to as her truest friend. And she says she doesn't know what's happened to Jane. She was gone when Sansa got back to her room. And just a reminder, we last heard of Jane Poole is when Sansa was finally called down to Cersei and some of the small council members. She told Cersei that Jane was in her room with her, and Sir Boris Blunt said, we didn't know what else to do with her, so we threw her in with Sansa, and Littlefinger said that he'd take care of her, and so Cersei had Blunt take Jane Poole to Littlefinger's chambers, and Cersei told Boris Blunt to tell Jane that Littlefinger was taking her to see her father, but she didn't say Littlefinger takes Jane Poole to her father.
Right.
So there's a distinction there.
Yeah.
And then Cersei told Littlefinger not to keep her in the city, and that's really all we know. We do know that Littlefinger owns brothels, so it's possible she could have ended up in a brothel.
When any young girl finds herself in Littlefinger's clutches, I fear for the fact that is his main profession and income source.
Yes.
Can't be good news.
But then she also thinks that she misses her little sister sometimes, Arya. She says, again, she thinks that Arya must be back in Winterfell now, dancing and sewing and playing with Bran and baby Rickon. And I was like, dancing and sewing?
Yeah.
Has it been that long since she saw Arya that she thinks she envisions her dancing and sewing?
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes.
You have an interesting idea here in the notes about how to get her on your side. You're never going to get her on your side, but you can placate her.
Yeah.
One way
right.
is through a friendship with Marcella. Because
Yeah.
they do seem to... She and Marcella seem to have more common interests than her and Arya, say.
Yeah, well, we talked a little bit about that in the last Sansa chapter way back, the beginning of this book, and it just seems like a missed opportunity to...
Yeah. I wonder if Cersei's afraid. I wonder if Cersei's afraid that Sansa might snap and kill Marcella.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, it's just a thought.
Right.
So she's... Like I said, she gives up and goes to bed, but then there's a ruckus outside and the bridge gets cleared and she quickly dresses without thinking about it and heads out there. She takes a knife with her, which it makes a certain amount of sense. I mean, unlikely you're going to win a fight.
Right.
It might make you feel a little bit better that you've got it just in case. You know?
She brings a knife to a sword fight.
Yes, possibly. Yeah.
I wondered if it... So she brings the knife because not necessarily to fend off attackers, but she says, if this is a trap, I would rather die than let them hurt me. And I wondered if it was one of those things that she says, but she doesn't really mean, or if it's a revelation into her current mental state where she's so lonely and miserable that she would rather die than face more
both.
Punishment.
Probably when the crunch came, she wouldn't actually do it, but I'm sure it's a sign of how the low ebb she's at.
Yeah, right. But then, so she leaves, and on her way to the Godswood, she's kind of up against the wall, catching her breath, and something rubs up against her leg, and it turns out to be a black one-eared cat. And of course, we've met this cat before. This is the same cat that Arya was trying to catch before she went down into the dungeons and then overheard Illyrio Mopatis and Lord Varys. And this cat also is a little Rhaenys...
Reportedly.
Yes. Reportedly, little Rhaenys Targaryen, Rhaegar's daughter's cat named Balerion. That was a little kitten when Rhaenys owned the cat, but
the black dread has diminished with 300 years.
Yes, now looks more like a one-eared cat.
Yeah. So she gets to the Godswood, and she's disappointed that it's Ser Dontos. She was hoping for someone more knightly. Just a thing here, are we sure that Ser Dontos is being honest?
Yeah. Right. Well, she wonders that at first, too. And she says that Lady sniffs out lies. And then she says, again, when I say, I mean think here. She thinks, well, but Lady's dead. Father killed her on account of Arya. And I thought, she still can't see that episode for the truth of it. Despite all the awful things Joffrey and Cersei have done, she still blames Lady's death on Arya, which is so clearly not Arya's fault. But
maybe there's a sort of like a layering of her thoughts there. Maybe she keeps the thought that it was all Joffrey's fault locked down, and on the surface, Arya was partly to blame. I mean, she could have stayed out of it.
Right.
Had she not got into it with Joffrey, then Nymeria wouldn't have attacked Joffrey, etc., etc.
Yeah, I if you go far enough down the path, you could find a way to make it Arya's fault. But
right.
But certainly, Lady's demise.
Right, Lady's demise is certainly at Joffrey's feet.
Right.
But again, if I were her, I might try not to think about that because I'm trying to stay in a mindset that allows me to interact with Joffrey without.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Right. Yeah, that makes a certain amount of sense. Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
Now, go on. You were saying about whether he's telling the truth here.
Yeah, he mentions Florian. I mean,
Yep.
I mean, Florian and Jonquil is a great legend of Westeros, but she loves that story. That's absolutely Sansa's favorite story. She likes no other story in any way close to that. And he mentions it in passing. He comes up with this. It feels like someone's feeding him a line. Like,
yes.
This is the way to Sansa's heart.
Yeah. If there's anything that he could have said to sway her, it was what he said.
Right.
And of all the kids in this story, she is by far the most susceptible to getting caught up in a fairy tale story. And this is her favorite of all the fairy tale stories. So it's very conveniently timed.
So then my mind went down that path, and then I started to think about the note. And I was like, how would Ser Dontos, who is basically as closely watched as Sansa, get this note under Sansa's pillow without anybody thinking about it?
Yeah.
That feels like he's getting significant help from someone with a bit of clout. It isn't one of her maids. I mean, it may literally have been one of her maids, but it wasn't at Well, I guess it could have been at Ser Dontos' request, but I'd be amazed he would be able to connect the dots to bring that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know a whole lot about Ser Dontos at the moment, but what we've seen is just a drunken oath. The fact that a drunken oath could get a secret message to her without anyone noticing, that's a tough sell there.
I mean, stumbling around Maegor's hold fast and entering rooms you're not supposed to be in. Maybe he's sort of like laid his stall out so that looks reasonable. But
yes, that could be it. He's, he's pretending to be the drunken oaf when really he's the mastermind behind.
Yeah.
This whole
so
plot.
The one person that I thought of if I started to think about this as being someone else is, of course, is Varys, because Varys would be, well, okay, I've no idea. I'm not putting a motive into Varys' hands here, but the opportunity and the resources to make this kind of thing happen, that sounds like Varys.
Right.
Whether he has any interest in Sansa, I don't know.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Certainly. I mean, we know he got Gendry out of town. Which was kind of protection of innocence, yeah? Yeah.
Gendry was innocent and he tried to protect him. He may think the same of Sansa.
He might have ulterior motives. We don't know what they are yet for getting Gendry out of town. We don't know. He might have ulterior motives for getting Sansa out of town, or he could just be trying to protect an innocent, like you said.
Yeah.
But
if nothing else, I would think Varys would know about this rendezvous, even if he didn't orchestrate it. I think he would know about it because no one's as good at him at tracking these people.
Yeah, and we know that he knew about the Redwine twins' escape plan on a similar plan. They were going to try and take a ship and get out of King's Landing. He knew about that, so it seems awfully hard to imagine that they're going to be able to carry this off without a hit, without him finding out if they take it all the way through. So either he's helping or he's going to find out, one way or the other. Yeah. But I noticed that she says, "Who's helping you?" She straight up asks him, "Who's helping you?" And he says, "No one. I swear on my honor as a knight." But as she points out, he's no longer a knight. So, maybe that was an attempt to falsely assure her that he's being legit. And, "I swear on my honor as a knight." You're not a knight. Okay, that's technicalities here.
Let's be clear. We have no evidence for this. I mean, Ser Dontos seems like an honest guy. It's surprising that he's managed to pull off this much of a plan, even if his next step is completely unknown to him. But that also fuels the sort of like, if you don't know what the next step is, does somebody else know what the next step is? And they're going to tell you?
Because it is pretty clear from their conversation, he has no plan. His plan is to get her out of the castle and buy passage on a ship. Well, anyone could have come up with that plan. That's not a plan. That's an itinerary.
My plan is to put a mint on your pillow and turn down the corner of your bed in Winterfell. The bit between now and then, I'm not sure.
Right. Someone else
do what I
figure
can.
That out. Clearly he must not know about the Red Keep's dungeons, and specifically that tunnel that Arya took to get to get outside of the walls. And there's probably a bunch of other passages that we haven't found out about yet, because we know there's a ton of secret passages and stuff in the Red Keep. So, and one thing that I'll mention in background is that Ser Dontos squired in King's Landing. So I would assume possibly in the Red Keep. So you'd think he should know his way around the castle fairly well. And Sansa, she mentioned she has run of the castle. So, it doesn't seem like an impossible mission to get her out.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing, actually, because I guess you can guard the main entrances, but everybody knows there are tunnels. I mean, Maegor the Misunderstood did not murder the builders because they'd done a poor job. He didn't want anyone to know where all the tunnels and escape routes were. Therefore, there are tunnels and escape routes. Therefore, you shouldn't let your prisoner have run of the castle. Right. They might just stumble upon one.
Maybe that has, the Lannisters aren't Targaryens. They're new to this castle. Maybe Cersei's not aware of just how many tunnels and escape routes there might be in the Red Keep.
Yeah.
But, so ultimately, this kind of conversation goes through what? Oh, not Ser Dontos. This guy's a drunken fool. To, hey, Florian was a fool too. And then ultimately ends with Sansa totally buying in. When she leaves the conversation, she thinks, he's going to take me home. He'll keep me safe, my Florian. And so there's a major transition that happens here. She starts out hoping for a true knight, disappointed that it's Ser Dontos, and then through the conversation, she emerges as, I found my Florian. I'm Jonquil. This is going to work. He's going to take me home. But
yeah, I will say about that I think his speech where he says, I haven't been a true knight for a long time, but your bravery in saving me guilted me and reminded me of what I should be doing. And you saved my life, so I owe you it, and I'll do everything I can to get you out. To me, that was very compelling. And, and especially if I'm a 12-year-old girl, I'm like, all right, I'm latching onto that.
Yeah, I agree. It was a very moving speech. Yeah. But as moving as it was, can she put her complete faith in someone as drunk and previously unreliable as Ser Dontos? What if he gets drunk and spill the beans? Or... yeah, maybe his intentions are good, but he falls off the wagon again and puts together some sloppy plan that's easily rooted out.
Well, we have just established that it really would only take a sloppy plan to get her out of here. Right. Find stairs, go down them, come out in daylight, get on first ship. You'll be fine.
She might be able to do it herself. Arya found those dungeons all on her own. Just keep going down. Go to darkness. Run to darkness, child.
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghostsharrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes.
Yeah, but, I mean, fingers crossed. I mean, there's definitely reasons to believe in him. He clearly has no love for the Lannisters.
Right.
He does genuinely owe her his life, and so you hope that he's going to be true to her. And if he is getting help from some smarter, more organized person, then maybe that's for the good.
Yeah, more
maybe
sober.
It's not a trap necessarily, but good news that he's getting help.
Yeah, we're a little bit cynical about this whole thing, but yes, I agree 100% with what you said.
So then she bumps into Sandor Clegane on her way back. He does not buy the lie that she's praying for Joffrey's safety.
What?
He says, you think I'm so drunk I'd believe that?
Yeah. Him of all people is uniquely aware of the impossibility that she is praying for Joff's safety. There's absolutely no way he would buy that.
The funny thing is, though, I mean, you understand why she always says things like that to anyone who asks her what she's doing. She always says something very loyal and
right.
And he accuses her of singing their song, but I'm like, she's just got to say it. She's not singing their song. She's covering her own behind.
Yep.
Because she doesn't want to get killed.
Yeah, I think multiple times in this chapter, he fails to put himself in her shoes very well. Like when they run into Sir Boris Blunt on the bridge, and he says that Sir Boris is nothing to fear, that you paint stripes on a toad, it doesn't become a tiger. That's easy for him to say, but he's seen Sir Boris beat her. A toad to the Hound equals a tormentor to Sansa, so he is something to fear to little young Sansa.
It's like if you paint stripes on a hyena, it doesn't become a tiger. The hyena will still eat me.
Right.
It just won't be a tiger while it's doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. He is shamblingly drunk in his defense here. He is.
Yes.
I mean, Ser Dontos had a glass of wine, he said, but the Hound is absolutely paralytic. So.
Yes. And he reminds her that he is no lord, just like he reminds everyone he is no knight. And I was thinking, if Tyrion does turn his older brother Gregor over to the Martells, then if he hadn't taken the Kingsguard vow, he would have been a lord. He would have been the Lord of Clegane's Keep.
That's true. But I'm just trying to remember. Littlefinger said that he wouldn't have been pleased with that, though, right? Because his brother was his to hate.
Yes. That was he said that to Ned when Ned sent Beric Dondarrion and company to summit the mountain.
As always, the Hound is complex with his interactions with Sansa. He's very rough and tender simultaneously. He grabs her arm like a vice, but he gently pushes her down the steps back to the holdfast.
Yeah.
So he's... maybe that's just the drink, but that does seem kind of like indicative of the way he treats her.
It does, yes. Every interaction that they've ever had, it's a mixture of him being somewhat sweet and gentle with her and somewhat rough with her, or curt, or threatening her life. So, he runs the gambit.
He does, yes.
But eventually they get back to the bridge into Maegor's Holdfast, and like I mentioned a few minutes ago, it's now Sir Boris Blunt who's manning the bridge, and she thinks that he's the worst of the Kingsguard, and we know that's because of the beatings that we've personally witnessed in the book. He's done most of them, and he's done them without emotion or hesitation. And if you remember, after her first beating in her bedroom, he came back later to get her for court and was like nothing.
Acted like nothing had happened.
Yeah, and she realized, oh, he doesn't hate me. He just doesn't care. King says hit me, and he hits me.
So I think Clegane's a sort of useful character for Sansa. Sort of like he definitely looks out for her to a certain extent, but every moment she spends with him is a trial, and also a reminder that the people who are protecting her are also her persecutors.
Yes.
That there's nobody here who's genuinely a protector of her. And those who act that way have other motivations. I think Sandor Clegane has romantic aspirations towards Sansa, to be honest.
Yeah, he sends incredibly mixed signals with that.
He does. It's hard to know.
Yeah.
But, so there's his motivation. Littlefinger, he occasionally acts like he's a protector, but I wouldn't trust him with anyone.
Nobody should trust Littlefinger for anything. But I noticed kind of a noteworthy connection here between the Hound and Ser Dontos, because both are trying to help Sansa. Sandor's doing what little he can to protect and guide Sansa through Joff's treatment of her, but he's got a role as a Kingsguard and Joff's protector, and he's got a pretty comfy gig that he probably doesn't want to mess up by opposing Joff on her behalf. But yet at the same time, like we've been saying, you can clearly see a soft, compassionate side that he has for Sansa, which also at times seems to really irk him, that he feels this way about her. And, Ser Dontos has absolutely no allegiances to Joffrey and has no job worth considering. So, he's a little more free to help her, but he doesn't have the means that the Hound would have if he chose to use them.
So at this point, Sir Boris explains how Sansa got across the bridge. I mean, obviously he didn't tell her that because he didn't know she got across the bridge until this moment. But it was because the small folk got wind of Tyrek Lannister's wedding feast, and they wanted some food from said feast,
Right.
and they rioted for it.
Yeah, you remember Tyrek, he was also, King Robert had two squires. One was Lancel Lannister, the other was Tyrek Lannister. And we learned back in the first Sansa chapter of this book that Tyrek is this wedding that they're getting ready to feast for, is for his wedding to baby Ermesond Hayford, which I did a background in that last Sansa chapter that she is the last of the Hayford line. And she is a baby, like a child, like an infant type baby. And Tyrek is like 13-ish. So
this is like a 10-year feast.
Yes. Yes, he's marrying an infant. But to be feasting at a time like this, it's just such blatant disregard for the plight of the people, and you can't be shocked that they ended up having some sort of issue where the small folk were rioting or causing a ruckus.
But that just gave Joffrey the opportunity to go and hack down some unarmed people.
Yep, that's so that's when Sansa was on her way to the Godswood, she saw Joffrey getting helped into his armor by some of his Kingsguard members, and Ser Boris says that's what he was off doing. He was leading a sortie to send the small folk scurrying, and that's when the Hound says, "Brave boy." And yeah, so brave to ride into a pack of unarmed, starving small folk while you're armed to the teeth and surrounded by your Kingsguard members.
Yeah, further cementing the reputation of the royal family within the city.
Yes, right. I mean, we already have a PR nightmare going on here. And the king himself is riding down unarmed small folk in the streets. So that's wonderful.
So we got the Clegane backstory of how the Hound's grandfather saved Titus, who's Tywin's father and therefore Cersei, Jaime and Tyrion's grandfather.
Right.
From a lion. I mean,
of all things.
Well, I guess you have them if you're a Lannister, so you're always running the risk of being eaten by one.
Yeah.
They're not good pets.
Yes, right. It when I read that part, I kind of thought of the contrast with Sansa's idea that good prevails over evil and true knights save maids in need, because, in this example, it just shows that, like, the real world outside of fairy tales, even lions attack Lannisters with no respect for the lion sigil on the Lannisters'
But
shield.
It depends on your perspective, really, because if you, from the Clegane's point of view, this was a fairy tale.
True, it did elevate them quite significantly.
I was a kennel master, and then my dogs saved the lord of the manor from the clutches of a lion, and here I am in my little holdfast.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's all about perspective.
Yeah.
So the chapter starts to wrap up with talk of Sansa singing songs that others want her to sing, and all those others being better liars than her. And then he says something that can be taken a bunch of different ways. He says, "One day I'll have a song from you, whether you will it or no." Now, she takes that statement literally and says, "I will sing a song for you. I'll be happy to do it." But of course, she is very young and naive, and she might be too young and naive to understand a more ominous meaning that he might have with that statement there.
Yeah. The one that everybody else heard.
Yes.
Yeah. But he does give her a piece of advice. He doesn't actually give her a piece of advice. He says something which she could take as a piece of advice, which is that she is the worst liar in King's Landing.
Right.
And that might be good for her to remember, because and the Hound and other dogs will smell the lie.
Yeah, and I wondered if maybe he was trying to give her a message there, like, if you want to survive here, you've got to be better guarded with your thoughts and intents. Yeah. You wear your thoughts and intents on your sleeve. Maybe, I was wondering if he's even guessed what she's up to, that she's up to some sort of escape plot, and he's saying, you're going to need to be a lot better liar if you have any hopes of success with whatever you're up to.
Honestly, if I'm captive anywhere, my entire life is an escape plot.
Right.
It might be pretty slow moving and not getting anywhere and unlikely to succeed, but that's all I'm thinking about.
Right.
All right, so background. So just the layout of the Red Keep. So it comprises the throne room, the Godswood, Maegor's Holdfast, which is like a castle within the castle. The Holdfast itself is surrounded by a dry moat, hence the bridge to get in and out of it. There's stables, kitchens, a well, granary, kennels, the Tower of the Hound, the Royal Sept, and a grand hall which is separate from the throne room and it's more suitable for larger events. The barracks of the Goldcloaks is also within the Red Keep, and there's also an armoury. Access to Maegor's Holdfast is via this bridge. It's a drawbridge, so it can be lifted up. It's on the east face of the Holdfast, but the Godswood is up against is right next to the Holdfast, but on the west side. So she had to go all the way around. And also, the Red Keep is on Egan's Hill, which is the tallest hill in King's Landing, but Maegor's Holdfast is actually in the lowest point within the Red Keep. So she had to, once she got across the drawbridge, she had to climb up the hill, up the serpentine steps, which is where she bumped into Sandor Clegane on the way back,
Right.
To get up to the level of the Godswood and then come all the way round Maegor's Holdfast to get to the Godswood. So that's just the layout of the Red Keep.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that. Thank you for pulling all that together. So, the scene at Joff's name day, where Ser Dontos got himself into trouble and Sansa had to bail him out, was not the first time that Ser Dontos was saved by someone asking for his mercy. Back in 277 AC, an event known as the Defiance of Duskendale, where King Aerys II, otherwise known as the Mad King, was taken hostage by members of House Darklin. He was eventually freed by Barristan Selmy, and King Aerys, as you might have guessed, had all members of House Darklin put to death. He did the same with one of their closely sworn houses, House Hollard. All members of House Hollard were put to death except for a young Dontos Hollard. Selmy specially requested that Dontos be spared, and King Aerys honored his request. However, the family's castle, once located northeast of Duskendale near Blackwater Bay, was destroyed. Now, the Hollard sigil is red and pink, alternating horizontal stripes, and then sitting above those stripes are 3 gold crowns on a blue, sometimes described as black, background. After the executions, young Dontos was brought to King's Landing to squire.
That's an interesting segue, actually, into the comparison with the television show. In the television show, Sansa is not passed a note. She goes to the Godswood during the day, and she's wandering around, and she hears someone behind her, and it is Ser Dontos. And so, obviously, this isn't a plan. This wasn't a rendezvous arranged.
Right.
They just bumped... Well, Ser Dontos was clearly looking for her, but she was just there off her own back. He offers her a gift. He offers her a gift of a necklace, which is a family heirloom. And he mentions the fact that he's the last of his line, that there will be no more Hollards. And he wanted to give it as a gift to her, as thanks for saving his life. And he had a similar kind of speech, but not about rescuing her, just about he wanted her to have this necklace.
Okay.
Because it had been his mother's, and he was not going to have any children, so his family line was going to die out, and he thought it should go to her.
Yeah.
There is no scene at all with Sandor Clegane, so this is quite a big deviation, in fact.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty neat that they worked that in there. They didn't work much of the chapter in there, but they worked that one little detail in there.
Right, which is until you told me that, I hadn't pieced that together. I was just as you were saying it, I was like, oh, that fits.
Okay.
Pedantry. I didn't actually find anything to be too pedantic about here.
Yeah, me either. Yeah. No.
I guess when nothing happens, it's harder to find harder to find flaws. News and notes.
So George Martin's alma mater, Northwestern University, is presenting him with an honorary doctorate at the commencement on June 14th. So this actually was announced a few weeks ago, but I figured I'd mention it for those who don't read his blog.
Yeah, that's very nice. That's very nice. Did you ever see the movie Lorenzo's Oil?
No.
It's about a kid who gets sick and his father sort of goes on a sort of like, he won't accept, the doctors can't do anything for him. He does medical research and actually comes up with a cure for his child.
Oh.
And this guy, well, spoiler alert, you don't need to watch that movie. That guy got an honorary doctorate for what he did. And ever since seeing that movie, that has been my yardstick for an honorary doctorate.
Oh, a lot of folks fall short of that, I have to say. Get honorary doctorates.
Exactly. Because I was like, that guy deserves a doctorate. He literally invented a cure for a disease that nobody else could cure.
That's pretty amazing. It's a true story?
It's true story. It's an absolutely stunning story.
What's it called?
Lorenzo's Oil.
Lorenzo's Oil. Okay. Wow, fascinating.
So, I'm not begrudging George Martin, to be clear. I mean, like, I think George Martin, he should be a doctor of letters for his contributions to world literature. Perfectly reasonable. But many others have not reached that level, just to be clear.
Yeah, I'm not even sure that George Martin's efforts reached that level.
Right.
That might be the highest level I've ever heard of for a honorary
to be
doctor.
fair, there are plenty of doctors who weren't as good as other doctors. So,
Right.
It's a broad stroke. Yeah.
Like the old saying, what do they call the person that finished last in medical school? Doctor. Same thing they call the one who finished first. You want to read the review?
Oh, I always want to read the reviews. All right, this is from poditup00 at podchaser.com. I came across this podcast because a friend of mine told me about it. It's not the first A Game of Thrones podcast that I've listened to. I used to listen to several back when the TV show was on, but this is the best that I've found. The hosts have great chemistry. One is British, the other American. They are fun and entertaining, and they have the best format of any Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire podcast that I've come across. If you're looking for a good Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire fix, do yourself a favour and start with these guys. You'll be happy that you did. I wish they'd been around years ago. Looking forward to tuning in for a long time. I'm doing a happy dance. Thank you very much, PodItUp00. I appreciate it. That's
wow, I got a big smile on my face. We both do, in fact. Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
All right, let's conclude. Sansa was very brave to go to the Godswood.
Oh, yes, right.
I will say, I think she probably would have been permitted to go, but she did seize the opportunity when it came, in a very almost Arya level of gumption and opportunism, I thought.
Right, yeah. It's gone against, like up to this point, she hasn't taken a lot of action. And this is, this was something she chose to do on her own, and she was very conflicted about it, but she did the brave, scary thing.
I will say, Arya wouldn't have gone to bed unable to make a decision about what to do. Arya would have just gone and done it. But
absolutely,
Sansa got there in the end, so credit where it's due. I like the fact she feels the pull of the old gods when she visits the Godswoods. I like the sort of sense that her latent northernness is coming out as she's sort of like separated from her family and freedom.
Right.
I like that thought.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I kind of had forgotten that it mentions in this chapter. I kind of had forgotten that she was more of a follower of the faith of the Seven. She describes it the way she describes it. She seemed like she's more in favor of the pomp and circumstances and all the. Right. She mentions the mother
pretty
of pearl
crystals.
And yeah. Right. Yeah.
She's also showing some growth, I think. I think there was a time in this story, I mean, we haven't had that much time with Sansa, really, but there's definitely a time in this story when she would have simply rejected Dontos for being dopey, fat, and drunk.
Yes, 100% agree.
But now, because of his sincerity, she throws her lot in with him, and passionately as well. I mean, not just like, I guess so, I got no other friends, but she was like moved and excited by the prospect.
Right. Yeah, she has done some amazing growth in the time we've known her, but she's also had some amazing hardships, and that'll help you grow, that's for sure. She went from kind of a head in the clouds, the daughter of the Lord of Winterfell, to someone who's seen a lot of things, a lot of terrible things happen, and she's a lot wiser and more careful than she used to be.
Including metal-encrusted fists coming towards her at great speed.
Right. She's had her heart broken. She's realized that a lot of people are liars and a lot of people don't have her best interests at heart. And that knights aren't always true knights.
No. But dogs generally are pretty loyal. It's true.
They are. Not my dog so much, but most people's dogs.
But just a note of caution, is Ser Dontos playing her? He sounded honest, but she really loves Florian and Jonquil. That coincidence just rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah. It's incredibly convenient that he came up with that thought right at that moment, because that's something that would definitely play heavy on her to sway her in his direction.
Feels like a Varys or a Littlefinger move.
Yeah.
And the fact that he got a note to her troubles me as well. That also feels like something that he couldn't have orchestrated.
Yep. It feels like how I don't know how he would have gotten that note in there. I don't know how he'd be clever enough. Maybe he'd surprise. Maybe he's going to surprise us. He's way more clever than he appears.
The same note is under every pillow in Mago's holdfast. The whole place comes.
That's what it is.
The Godswood is just jammed full of people, all bumping into each other.
I want to go home.
I'm starving.
But then, like you said, it does sound a bit like a Varys or maybe a Littlefinger thing. But if Varys is not involved, is there any chance that he doesn't get wind of this plot before they carry the plot out? Like I said earlier, he got wind of the Redwine twins' escape plan.
Yeah.
So,
well, perhaps Ser Dontos' inability to come up with a plan will protect him from having his plan found out.
That's true.
I haven't thought of anything, but I'm staying one step ahead of them. If I don't know what the plan is, neither do they.
But at least Sansa thinks that there's finally an action plan. Like, basically, since she informed Cersei about the plans that Ned had to get Sansa and Arya out of King's Landing, she's basically been a passive spectator to everything that's going on. And, she's finally got a plan. Again, of course, she's waiting on Ser Dontos here, but at least she has a secret to keep and a mission to possibly see through.
Right, yeah, and that's light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
Even if nothing happens from it, you've got something to dream about, to hope for.
Right.
So that's good for her. She's the one character who's had almost no agency or freedom for the longest time.
Yeah.
And not even a friend to talk to.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, she can go to bed thinking about this plan coming together and her finally getting out of her. She finally has a
instead
little
of
glimmer of
what
hope.
miseries tomorrow holds. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And the Hound, he does protect her in his own kind of odd way. One thing we didn't mention is when Sir Boris asks her, "What are you doing out here?" And she makes up the line, says, "I was praying in the Godswood." Again, the Hound backs her and says, "How do you expect her to sleep with all this noise going on?"
Right. Yeah.
So he's backing her.
I gotta say, I don't think Sir Boris really cared. He was just going through the motions.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But
you're not escaping, and I've not been told to punch you, so on you go.
Right. Whatever, get back to your room.
Yeah.
But, on the other hand, from him protecting her, we've got his line of, "I'll have a song from you, will it or no?" It's, is it literal or something more ominous?
She needs to go back to Ser Dontos and say, "Let's skip this. Let's skip this along, please."
Right.
I'll have a ticket tomorrow if you can. All right. As always, you can reach us at ghost.harrenhall@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at @GhostHarrenhall. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Discord.
That's right. And if you wouldn't mind going out and leaving us a 5-star rate or a fantastic review, we certainly would appreciate that. Especially on Apple Podcasts. We're really trying to generate some more reviews on Apple Podcasts. So if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, if you please give us a 5-star rate and just a quick review, we'd certainly very much appreciate that. And hey, if you do, we might read it on a future episode.
Definitely will one day.
That's right.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.